So today I will try to explain you how we can deduce from the dynamical reparametrization lemma stated in my first talk some equidistribution property of periodic point for C-infinity surface diffeomorphism. So, okay, if you have a general topological system, you may consider the topological entropy, but also periodic points. And you wonder if there is some relation between the topological entropy and the exponential growth of periodic point. In general, there is no relation. For example, you may have even a subshift, a minimal subshift, so without periodic point, but with positive entropy. And conversely, you may have, okay, trivially, some system with a lot of periodic points, but with zero entropy. But if the system is expansive, it is a folklore fact that the topological entropy is larger than the exponential growth of periodic points. So I said in my first talk that C-infinity surface diffeomorphism satisfies some weak expansiveness property. And okay, I will try to see what I can do with this weak expansiveness property to say something about such an equality for C-infinity surface diffeomorphism. Okay, so let me recall one more time this theorem of Bowen, which says that, okay, if you are expansive, but so the expansiveness gives you this inequality, but if you want an the converse inequality, you need some more properties, and if you want many periodic points, the specification property is important. So, okay, if you have a continuous potential with the Bowen property, it was, maybe I should recall it, there exists some scale epsilon and some constant c, that for all n, if you look at the sum of the potential so say is less than c for all y, z, so this is for all x, and for all y, z in some dynamical. In the dynamical ball center at x, size epsilon. And in this case, the topological entropy is given. So let me maybe rewrite what is the sum of the potential. I already use this notation. And in this case, the topological entropy is given by this formula. So if, okay, the topological, pressure is given by this formula. The definition of the topological pressure was recalled in a talk yesterday, so I will not recall it. So if you just want to work with the topological entropy, you can just take phi to be equal to 0, and then here in the right number you get just the exponential growth of periodic points. And in this context, the specification property implies also uniqueness of, so there exists in fact under this assumption an equilibrium measure, that is a measure mu, that the topological pressure is equal to the integral plus the entropy. And okay, so you have a formula, an explicit formula in terms of the periodic point. So for the zero potential, it just means that the measure of maximal entropy, enfin, the periodic point equidistributed along the measure of maximal entropy. So this result, as it was explained in the mini course of Klimenaga and Thompson, was generalized in a nice way to a more general setting. So, and the typical example is the case of topologically mixing uniformly hyperbolic systems with Hölder potential. All these assumptions are satisfied. And so we have equidistribution of periodic points along the unique maximal measure in this case. Okay, so now I'm working on a surface and I'm considering a diffeomorphism. So in this case, you always have a lot of periodic points, and it follows from non-uniform shadowing Katok lemma. So in particular, so if you have some ergodic measure with positive entropy, it is hyperbolic. And okay, then you may create a horseshoe, hyperbolic horseshoe with entropy arbitrarily close to the topological entropy. And so as in this uniformly hyperbolic horseshoe, the entropy is given by the exponential growth of the periodic points, you get such a formula. Then the next step is that we can wonder if here we have an equality. But before to wonder if we have an equality, we can wonder if this exponential growth is even finite. Okay, so densely, yes, this is true. For the CR topology for R between 1 is and plus infinity, and this is a result due to Artin-Maser and Kaloshin. So proves that for CR dense set of surface diffeomorphism, the exponential growth of periodic point is finite. But it is not true generically. So this is a result due to Kaloshin based on the work of Goshenko, Touraev, and Shilnikov to build flat homoloconic tangency. So they prove that, so here it is for CR larger than 2. They build an open set, which called Gauss domain. So you have an open set where you have a persistent homoclinic tangency. And generically in this open set, you have a super exponential growth of periodic points. And in fact, it is more precise if you fix some rate, so some sequence going to infinity, you can find such an open set n, and that generically in this open set, you have that the growth of periodic points is larger than this sequence at each step. Okay, so but the point here is that in this construction, the periodic point you will build will have a small Lyapunov exponent. Okay, so that's why here, if I want some inequality between the topological entropy and the exponential growth of periodic points, I need to consider not the whole family of periodic points, but only some subset of periodic points. And so, okay, if I have a periodic point, so I am on a surface, I'm considering the two Lyapunov exponent, and I'm considering only so the saddle periodic points, and where both Lyapunov exponents, the positive and the negative, are delta away from 0. And I will take delta always strictly positive and strictly less than the topological entropy. So in fact, in the proof of Katok theorem, when you build a horseshoe near your hyperbolic measures, you can ensure that the measure, the invariant measure of the horseshoe all are hyperbolic with Lyapunov exponent larger, enfin delta away from 0, for some fixed delta less than the entropy of the measure you consider, and so you can consider any entropy measure, any measure with entropy close to the topological entropy. So you can refine, in fact, the theorem to consider here the periodic points with Lyapunov exponent delta away from 0. And this result has been generalized by Gelfert and Wolf in a more general setting by considering some Hölder potential, which is small, which means that you have this condition here. Topological entropy is larger, strictly larger than the supremum of the supremum norm of the potential. So this implies that if you have a measure mu which is close to the topological entropy, this condition implies that the entropy is positive, and in particular, this measure will be hyperbolic. So in this context, here was for C1 plus systems, all the Katok theorem of all this setting, the topological entropy will be less than this quantity. Okay, so let me state here an important statement of this talk is the following. So I consider the same setting as before, except here I take a C-infinity smooth diffeomorphism. And okay, then, and the potential is always satisfies the previous condition, that is, it is a Hölder potential with, which is small, that is, the topological pressure is strictly larger than the supreme norm of the potential. Then with this condition, under the C-infinity assumption, the topological entropy is given by the limb soup here. So for the topological entropy, when the potential is 0, this means that the topological entropy is given by the exponential growth of the periodic points with the Lyapunov exponent delta away from 0. And okay, if you have some subsequence nk here, which shift this limb soup, and if you look at the measure which is equidistributed with respect to the periodic points along this sequence, then you get an equilibrium measure with respect to the potential. Well, here maybe I should make some remark. So in the C1 plus setting, you have you may build a sequence of horseshoe, for uniformly hyperbolic horseshoes. That the topological entropy of this horseshoe is going to the topological entropy of the diffeomorphism. And then you can consider so the periodic point inside this horseshoe. And look at the exponential growth rate of this. So I said that you can choose this horseshoe in such a way all the hyperbolic measure invariant by this horseshoe are delta hyperbolic. So this converges to the topological entropy of Kp. And so you can consider also here the equidistribution, the measure which equidistributes along these things, I mean say mu n p. So this will converge when n goes to infinity, or some subsequence, to mu p, the measure of maximal entropy of the horseshoe. And so what you can do, if f, for example, is infinity, the entropy function is upper semi-continuous. So if you take some limit mu of mu p, you will get that h of mu is equal to the topological entropy. Okay, so, but here what we are doing is different. Here we take some hyperbolic horseshoe which is close to the topological entropy. You look at the measure of maximal entropy of this horseshoe, which equidistribute with respect to the periodic point of this horseshoe, and then you take a limit. Here the difference is I'm considering all the periodic points with, which are delta hyperbolic at the same time, not periodic points lying in some given uniformly hyperbolic horseshoe. So it's not, here it's just a result using uniformly hyperbolic theory, here it's a result of non-uniformly hyperbolic theory. I mean. Yes?
So in your notation, you didn't reflect this fact that you're summing over the periodic points of the horseshoe.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. So now we have a better understanding of the Katok theorem thanks to the Segrig coding of a surface diffeomorphism by topological Markov shift. And in particular, he managed to prove that we have indeed multiplicative estimate. So here you can take phi equal to 0 if you prefer, but you can work also with this potential Hölder and small. And under this hypothesis, you have some p, and you have this multiplicative estimate of the growth of periodic points for along some sequence which is given by the multiple of what is the period of the graph, connected graph in the topological Markov shift. And in the C-infinity setting, so Buzy-Krovizzi and Sarig have recently proved that for topological transitive C-infinity surface diffeomorphism, there exists a unique equilibrium measure with respect to this small Hölder potential. And in the case of topologically mixing C-infinity diffeomorphism, you can choose P to be equal to 1. Okay, so maybe here it was not stated like this in Sarig's paper. First, he only considered the zero potential, but it can be extending in the same way for small Hölder potential using Gurevich theory. And another remark is that here he didn't consider periodic points which are delta hyperbolic, but just periodic points. But the fact is that, the image of any periodic point in the topological Markov shift will be delta hyperbolic. So I will not be more precise, but the image of periodic points of the topological Markov shift will be delta hyperbolic for some uniform delta. So therefore, if we apply so the main theorem of this talk that I will state it later on, we'll get this statement that is exactly the Bowen statement. So for infinity surface diffeomorphism. That is in the case of topological mixing. You have that the exponential growth of periodic points is given by the topological entropy if you restrict to periodic points which are delta hyperbolic. And you have equidistribution of periodic points along the equilibrium measure. Well, so now let me explain the main result. So I need just to introduce some general topological notions. So I consider topological systems and a subset of a set of periodic points. And for such, so here we will consider the set of periodic points which are delta hyperbolic in the following. And okay, I denote the exponential growth of this subfamily by this quantity. And I also defined local quantity. So what does it mean? Here, I look at some dynamical ball, and I count the number of periodic points inside each dynamical ball. Take the supremum over all the dynamical ball and the exponential growth in n. And then the tail p growth, if p is this subfamily of periodic points, is just the limit when the scale is going to 0. So a very easy fact of ergodic theory is the following lemma. So if now I'm considering, so here I just take the potential phi equal to 0, and I consider the measures which are equidistributed along my family P and K, where here Nk is a subsequence where I see the exponential growth of my family. Then you have this property, that is the entropy of this measure is larger than the exponential growth of my family minus the local exponential growth. In particular, it will imply by the variation principle that the topological entropy is larger than this difference. And so let me just explain the proof, which is a very elementary lemma of ergodic theory. So here I consider the measures which are equidistributed along my subfamily of periodic points. So this is an invariant measure. And okay, I take some partition with diameter less than epsilon, and some subpartition of my iterate partition, such that any element of this subpartition has almost one periodic point of my subfamily. So then, let me recall the definition of the static entropy. So the static entropy. Okay, and it is well known that if you consider this sequence, it is going decreasingly to the measure, the entropy measure with respect to the partition P. So that is like this. So let's go. How it works. So I take L less than n, and I'm considering this quantity here. So by the decreasing property, it is larger than this. And then you can just apply so the definition of the conditional entropy. So the point here is now this partition contains, in each atom of this partition you have at most one element of Pn. And μn is the measure which is equidistributed to this family of Pn. So what you get is exactly, here this is the equality between these two quantities, you get exactly the growth of periodic points, n periodic points in your subfamily. And well, here it's conditional entropy. Pn is contained in some dynamical ball because P is diameter less than epsilon. And so you can just bound roughly this conditional entropy by this term. And just applying here the definition of the local periodic growth, you get by letting first you first let n goes to infinity. So when n goes to infinity, you will get this. This term will go to this term. And the mu n will go to mu in the weak star topology. And by continuity property of the entropy function, you will have such an inequality at the limit. And then just make L goes to infinity and you get the required estimate. So now, I'm considering a C1 surface diffeomorphism, and I consider the subfamily of periodic points given by periodic points which are delta away from 0, with Lyapunov exponent delta away from 0. So there is something I forget to say is that here I'm considering the exponential growth of periodic points where I fix some lower bound of the absolute value of the Lyapunov exponent. But there are previous works of Yamdin and Kaloshin called the so-called quantitative hyperbolicity, where they have a different approach. So they consider a diffeomorphism with all periodic points hyperbolic, and then they look at some period n, and they look at the supremum of the Lyapunov exponent of periodic points at this period n, so you get a sequence. And they manage to relate this quantity with the number of periodic points of period n. And in particular, a consequence of this is, they in particular prove this theorem. So this is just a consequence of some lemma in the Kaloshin paper at the end. And my main theorem here is that for all positive delta, if you look at the tail periodic growth with respect to periodic points with Lyapunov exponent delta away from 0, this periodic growth is equal to 0. So there is the proof is technical, and it involves the dynamical reparametrization lemma for C-infinity systems. So if I consider just a CRR system, I will get some bound here, which will depend on R, but it will go to 0 when R goes to infinity. But in general, I don't know. This upper bound is quite complicated for some fixed R, and I don't know if such estimates are sharp or not. So let me now explain a little the ideas of the proof. So by first considering the easy case of interval maps. So when you have you consider a C-infinity interval maps, and here you have just one exponent. You consider some lower bound delta for the Lyapunov exponent. So a consequence of the Bund distortion lemma, which I stated yesterday, is the following. So for any error term gamma, which corresponds to the exponential small growth of the number of the cardinality of my reparametrization family, And for all x in M, so maybe here I just fix x, so maybe you can forget this term. So there exists some scale, which depend on this term gamma, some constant, and some reparametrization family, such that you have the following property. So first, the image of the reparametrization will cover this subset of the Bowen ball, of the dynamical ball. So here I have some expansion with respect to delta. And moreover, as I said yesterday, on the image of my reparametrization map, I have a bounded distortion property, which can be written here just like this. And the number of reparametrization, as I said, is exponentially small. So why now it is not difficult to prove the theorem in this stating? So if here I'm considering the image of some reparametrization, say I have some point here which is delta hyperbolic. So by the distortion property, on this wall interval, I will have expansion. So maybe let me call En. It is almost. And therefore, if I have two periodic points in this interval, I would have a problem. So there is just one point here. Okay, so at this scale epsilon, the number of periodic points will be bounded by the exponential growth of the cardinality of my family of reparametrization. And therefore, the main theorem, and in fact all its corollary, holds for infinity interval maps. So now, let us try to explain the idea for surface diffeomorphism. Okay, so first, we try to adapt this strategy by defining elementary pieces where you have some hyperbolicity at finite time, like this interval. Yeah, you have hyperbolicity at time n. And okay, here what is very easy in dimension 1 is that the geometry of the image of the reparametrization, they are just interval, and so it's very easy to control the geometry here. And then, as in the interval case, I want to cover a given dynamical ball of length n by an exponentially small number of such pieces. So let me explain what kind of pieces I will consider. So maybe, yes, there is a first reduction. I can explain. So when I have a periodic points with Lyapunov exponent delta away from 0, there is some angle which depend only on delta, such that at some point, so I forget something here. So here it will be the max. So I will write all the statements. So there exists a fixed delta, and I said that there is some angle alpha which depends on delta, so that for all x, which is periodic delta hyperbolic, then the angle, so there will be some point in the orbit of this periodic point, so that the angle between the point of this orbit is larger than alpha. This is if the angle between the unstable and the stable direction remains close along the whole orbit, the difference between the two Lyapunov exponents should be close to. So there is at least one time where you see a large angle. So now I will define the what I called B cone. So I consider two cones. So so say U here. And the aperture of this cone is less than alpha over 2. This is also less than alpha over 2. And here the angle is larger between these two cones. Maybe I should use another color. Okay, so and I can, since alpha is now fixed, it depends only on delta, you can build a family of B cones, which is with cardinality uniformly bounded, so that when I have now two, so here two unit vectors in R2, just that the angle between these two vectors is larger than alpha, then you will have this property that V will be equal to V and W will be in each so in some B cone. So then if I fix some B cone and I consider the periodic points with Lyapunov exponent delta away from 0, such that the stable and unstable direction lies in this given B cone. And the fact, the previous property implies that if I want to estimate this cardinality, I just have to estimate this quantity here. That is the cardinality of a periodic point in a given B cone. Okay. So now let me explain what is the analog of hyperbolic intervals at the step n. I will define what I call the hyperbolic hexagons. Okay, so what is an hyperbolic hexagon? So here I have, say, I'm working now on R2, so say you have just surface diffeomorphism of R2, and I will just considering the local dynamic at 0. Okay, and here B, so it's a unit ball, and Bn, it is a dynamical ball for this non-autonomous system, so the set of points which always remains in the unit ball. So first, this hyperbolic hexagon will be, will have some hyperbolic structure, delta n hyperbolic structure, which means that Okay, on this set. We have two C-infinity vector fields, which depend on n. So one will be contracting and the other will be expanding with this rate for Fn. And these two things lie in the Cu and Cs cone respectively. And their image also. I mean, if I look here, I will be still in the so this is DFN. So So now, what I called an hexagon is something which has this kind of accessibility condition. So it's a subset of my dynamical ball where I have some hyperbolic condition at time n. So that any 2 points of this set can be joined by following lines which are tangent to ES, and then so by S and U paths, where S path is tangent to this vector field ESN, and U path are tangent to this field EUN. And the important point is that it is always in the same direction. Here, just consider ES and EU to be constant, to be the vertical and the horizontal direction. And so this has necessarily this form. Such a set, if you fix ES and EU to be the horizontal and the vertical direction, it is the area between the graph of a function which is monotone with two branches of monotonicity, and the same for the others. So it's why I call this an hexagon, because it looks like more or less an hexagon. I don't know, it's a good terminology, but. And the point here now is that if you have if you have such an hexagon here, and if I consider 2 points two periodic points in this hexagon, okay, so you can join them by such SU path. But recall that you have expansion along the S direction and U direction and contraction along the S direction. So if you have such things, if you consider the vectors which is the sum of these two things, so say, okay, here I consider the sum of these two things. So it will give you some vector Vs, and okay, so Vs will lie in the cone Cs, and here you get some Vu, which lies in the Cu, and when you apply fn of x minus fn of y. So it will be, if it is a periodic, both periodic points, so we get x minus y. But it is not possible because if you have such a, such a picture, it will contradict the fact that it preserves the cone. So it maybe I should start with a more simple example. In uniformly hyperbolic dynamics for surface Anosov diffeomorphism, so you can consider a sequence of rectangle, for example. And okay, you can just look at the rectangle here. Which is the intersection of f minus k of fk. And this is the analog of hexagon in this simple setting of Anosov diffeomorphism, because if you have 2 points here which are periodic, you can just okay, so you have this local product structure, so you can just join them here. But when you apply, if you come back to these rectangles at the end, here it's again R0, it's not possible because you expand on this direction and you contract on the others. So this is a similar situation, but okay, here, okay, it's more complicated, so yes, thank you. So I didn't. Okay, so maybe let me okay, just explain quickly how you apply. So we will apply the dynamical reparametrization lemma with for infinity cocycles. For the following dynamic, so I consider, so the bundle I will consider here, so say I'm working on R2, it will be X in R2, and I will take U in the tangent space at X, V in the tangent space at X. And okay, I look at the sphere, so as the following action on V, which maps X, U, V to f of X, the differential at X. And as before, I am interested in the spherical action. Here it's not really the spherical action, but it's some variant. Here, so S2F, so to which will map XUV to f of X dx, so the projective part here of these things. And so what will give me the dynamical reparametrization for cocycles? It will give you a family of reparametrization. So this reparametrization will be defined on this domain. And they will have the following form. So the first two, so it takes values in, okay, I didn't write what is S2 of V, but S2 of V will be the same here where I consider unit tangent vector. And they will have the following form. So for here, if I take some x ts, this theta 2n xu theta 3n xd. Okay. So what does it mean? What look like such the image of such a reparametrization? So you have here, say the image of theta 1n, and I reparametrize here in the projective bundle here the two directions. So here above one point x, you have, for example, here it is the image of theta 1n x. And similarly, you can consider the image of the other component. And this image, okay, if the image of theta n contains, if there exists some periodic point, so that EU, so with respect to my cone, which I can fix, so that ESX EUX X belong to the image of my reparametrization. Then it will, okay, I have no more time, but when I apply the reparametrization lemma, it says that you have a control of, so the distortion on this map, on the image of this map. So if I am expanding at my reparametrization contains in the image such hyperbolic points, it will imply that we will have an hyperbolic structure on my image of my reparametrization, so such hyperbolic structure. And then, okay, it will not give me, so I have some set where I will have some hyperbolic structure, but I do not necessarily have such an hexagon. And to get hexagon from this reparametrization, we need to control the geometry of this reparametrization. And so this is something I didn't say in my previous talk, I didn't use, is that this reparametrization are semi-algebraic. And so you can define an algebraic complexity, a notion of degree for this reparametrization. And okay, if you remember how these reparametrization are constructing, they are constructing by induction, and you composed reparametrization to each other at each step. And so you will get that the degree, the algebraic complexity of any map in this family of reparametrization will be exponentially small. So you control the geometry of the reparametrization. And this control, this sub-exponential degree, allows you to divide the image of the reparametrization by exponentially small number of hyperbolic hexagons. Bon, je vais m'arrêter là, merci.
So if you, in higher dimension, if you average along periodic orbits which are delta hyperbolic, what do you expect?
I don't know. First, it should be, you should assume something in higher dimension, because why there exist hyperbolic points which are hyperbolic? Why do you have hyperbolic points? For example, you know you have Hermann examples give you positive entropy diffeomorphism, which is minimal, so you don't have any.
Assume there is an exponential growth.
Assume yes. Yes, maybe we can adapt this work to get that the exponential growth of periodic points will be achieved by delta hyperbolic points. But I use typical two-dimensional argument to control the geometry at some point.
Other questions?
Do you need to control the angle between the cones, or?
Yes, the point is that, as I said, when you have a periodic points with Lyapunov exponents which are delta away from 0, we have one point in the orbit where the angle is uniformly bounded by a uniform bond which depends only on delta. And then you fix these angles between the two cones for over.
But does this suffice for the geometrical control that you need to obtain hexagons at the end?
Yes, because at the end the pair of cones will be fixed, and you work with just such a fixed pair, and it's not more problem.
Other questions? So, we thank you for this course.